Today I'm going to cover the process of creating your base molding that goes around the bottom, front and sides of your mini chest. It all starts with the rough board, and we're going to start here at the radial arm saw to get your rough 27-inch long piece of material so you can start processing your molding. First step is I've got to trim the end off in order to get all of the checking removed, and this board has got a really bad bark edge, so I'm going to take off roughly that's about 15 inches worth of material. Again, the dust collector is not turned on just to reduce the noise for this video, but any and all cuts that you make, you should have the dust collector turned on. So I'm going to turn it on, and I'll get my rough length board out of this 10 or 12, I think it's a 12-foot long board, so here we go. From here, I'm going to take my rough length board over to the jointer, and I'm going to get myself a working edge. So we're going to move over there next. My next step for creating the molding that goes around the bottom of my mini chest is to joint an edge on the rough length board that I just cut. So I'm going to take my board, I'm going to put it up here on the bed of the jointer, and looks like this is my good edge. Just remember that you want to joint the edge that does not rock. This is my edge that rocks, so I'm going to flip it back over to that first edge, and this is going to be the edge that I joint. If my board is less than 6 inches, I do need to use push sticks, and I need one for each hand, so I'm going to use these when I'm jointing my edge. So here we go. I'm going to create a good working edge here. Is clean, straight, and square. My next step is to rip it to 5 inches wide on the table saw. So I'm going to go over and set up there next. The next step for creating the molding that goes around the bottom of my mini chest is to take my blank that I am going to be using, and I'm going to rip it on the table saw at 5 inches wide. So I'm going to set the fence for 5 inches. The jointed edge that I just created, my good edge, is going to go up against the fence when I make this cut. So here we go. Remember to have a push stick for this cut. That piece of scrap goes in the garbage can. And for my next step, I'm actually going to take this edge that I just jointed, and I'm going to run it, or that I just ripped on the table saw, excuse me. The edge that I just cut on the table saw, I'm going to go over to the jointer, and I'm going to joint that edge. Just one slow, steady pass to clean that up and get all of the table saw marks off of it. So that's where I'm going to head next. I'm at the jointer where I'm going to joint the edge that I just ripped on the table saw. My first edge was already initially jointed. My second edge was ripped. Now I want to get rid of those machine marks, or the blade marks on that edge. So I'm going to go ahead and make one slow pass and clean that up and make it nice and clean. Now that I have two good clean edges, I can take this to the wide belt sander, and I'm going to sand both faces until they are perfectly clean. Depending on your board, you might have to take it down a little bit more, but You don't want to over sand this, so I'm going to go set up on the wide belt sander, and I'll get this board sanded out for us. Here at the wide belt sander, I've got my board ready to go. I've already set the sander up. I just need to turn the dust collector on and the sander on, and I can start sanding down both faces until they are nice and smooth. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to wander off camera, and I'm going to turn the dust collector on. Then I'll come back and I'll fire up the wide belt sander.
My board is clean on both faces. There are a couple low spots on the knots, and I think I'm going to make this my good face. I'm not going to worry about taking this all the way down. It is mostly smooth, but I like this face the best. I really like that knot. So I'm going to do one more pass on that face. So I'm going to do another quick click, and I flip it over, put it back in. That's pretty much all I need to do with my board. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the sander by clicking or hitting the 3 small red buttons. Once you've done that on the sander, you're pretty much done. I'm going to go ahead and set up over on the shaper so I can cut my 2 molding pieces.
After you've sanded your board that you are using for your molding that's going to go around the base of your box, your mini chest, you're going to come to this shaper. You're going to choose which side is your good side, your good face, and you're going to put this through, and you're going to shape both edges. That'll create 2 of your pieces of molding that you're going to put on your box. So you're going to take your blank, and it's going to go face down. The only thing you have to be aware about this shaper is, or when you go to use the shaper, is you've got to keep the blank up against both sides of the fence on either side of the power feed. So you've got to keep it up against the fence on this side and that side. In order to turn on the machine, we're going to start by turning on the power feed. You're going to do 1 click counterclockwise or to the left, and then you're going to turn it on using the black dot down below. Once you've cut both edges, turn off the power feed and turn off the shaper down below. Now that I have my board and I've got both edges shaped, I'm going to go to the table saw next. I'm going to set the fence for 2 1/4, and that will give me both of my pieces of molding. I'm going to cut 2 1/4 off of this edge here. I'm going to turn it around, and I'll cut off 2 1/4 on this edge as well. So I'm going to set up over the table saw next. Here at the table saw, I've got my board that I'm going to get my 2 pieces of molding out of, and I'm going to set the fence for 2 1/4, and I'll make my 2 cuts. Just make sure that you have a push stick handy before you start making your cuts. Now that I have my two pieces of molding, I'm going to take these two over to the workbench. I'm going to get an old sanding disc out of the hand tool cabinet, and I'm going to finish sand the detail that the shaper cut on my molding pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand sand in between where my fingernails are. So from that point to this point, I'm just going to sand that detail in between. And it's really quick and simple, but I want to point out a couple things as I do this. So I'm going to set up over on the workbench, and I'll show you how to do this. Here at the workbench, I've got my two pieces of molding that I'm going to put on my mini chest around the front and the sides, and I've got an old sanding disc that I'm going to use to hand sand this this profile that I just cut on the shaper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by using the sanding disc by curving it and making it profiled so it fits tight into that little rounded corner here. I'm just going to go the length of it. And then I'm going to flatten it out. I'm going to take care of this flat surface here from one end to the other. And then turn it around, and I'm just going to take care of this rounded surface. It may not be a bad idea to come back over this just to ensure that it all got sanded evenly. Now I'm just going to do that curve just to blend it in with what I sanded on that flatter surface. Now, in order to get this really tight curve that's at the top, I'm going to take my same piece, but I'm going to round it to create that really tight curve that was that's on that top surface. So I'm going to really pull that in tight, and I'm going to put it right into that corner and just run the length of it. And then I'm going to come back and I'm just going to go right into that corner. And just for fun, I'm just going to hit the top edge. Once you have sanded both pieces, you are ready to take this over to the miter saw with your box and to start cutting miters, your 45-degree angle miters, and start trimming out your box with it.